Most viewers know George A. Romero as the filmmaker who changed the definition of the word zombie with his classic Night of the Living Dead. You've watched him splash gore across the screen with several entries in his zombie franchise. You've probably seen his Stephen King anthology Creepshow, and maybe his sort of vampire movie Martin. But have you ever seen Monkey Shines? His 1988 movie about a scientifically enhanced monkey who gains telepathic abilities and homicidal tendencies? If not, it's the best horror movie you never saw. Taking its title from a term that has been around since the 1800s and is used to describe mischievous behavior, Monkey Shines started off as a novel that was written by Michael Stewart. Stewart's novel told the story of Oxford law student Alan Mann, who is left quadriplegic after an accident. To help him navigate day-to-day life, Alan is gifted with a helper monkey named Ella. Things go smoothly at first. Ella is very helpful, and she and Alan develop a deep bond. Problem is, Ella has undergone some scientific procedures that were meant to increase her intelligence. They have done that, but they also enable her to establish a telepathic connection with Alan. This connection is very twisted, as being tapped into Ella's primate mind causes Alan to easily go into animalistic rages. And when Alan gets really angry at someone, Ella takes it upon herself to remove them from his life. Writing the script, Romero stuck fairly closely to the source material. One of the biggest changes was that he moved the setting from England to the American city he lived in, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Another change was made at the request of the producers. While Alan remained quadriplegic at the end of the novel, Evans wanted him to be healed by the end of the movie. So Romero did research into spinal issues and found a way to explain how Alan would regain the ability to walk in the story. In the script, Alan does become quadriplegic after being hit by a truck, but that was a terrible coincidence. The injury he sustained in the accident isn't actually the reason for his paralysis. The real reason is a congenital problem that can be fixed with another surgery. But Alan won't find that out until late in the film, by which time he has already formed a dangerous bond with Ella. Romero did run into a bit of trouble with the producers when he turned in a script that was 240 pages long. The general rule is that 1 page of script will equal 1 page of screen time. So unless Monkey Shines was going to be a 4-hour movie, that script needed to be trimmed down substantially. Soon the script was in place, had secured a budget in the range of $6 to $7 million. A production schedule of at least 11 weeks was put together. The cast and crew would work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Filming was set to take place in Pittsburgh, of course. Scenes would be shot at Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh, in residential areas and on sets constructed by production designer Cletus Anderson and his crew. Romero proceeded to assemble a strong cast for the film, with many of the actors going on to become either well-known or quite prolific. Jason Berge was cast as Alan, with Kate McNeil as monkey trainer Melanie Parker, who becomes Alan's love interest as things progress. Joyce Van Patten, who already had 40 years of credits to her name, was cast as Alan's mother Dorothy, who sees her son's injury as a chance to make up for her past failures as a parent and smother him for the rest of her life. Romero cast his then-wife Christine Forrest as Alan's live-in nurse Marianne, who brings her budgie bird into the house with her. A personal touch added to the story by Romero, as he and Forrest had budgies in their home. Stanley Tucci plays Dr. John Wiseman, who treats Alan after his accident and takes the opportunity to steal his girlfriend Linda, played by Janine Turner. Stephen Root plays Burbage, an antagonistic dean at the local college who oversees the experiments being conducted by Alan's friend Jeffrey. Romero had some trouble casting the role as Jeffrey. He knew who he wanted to play the role, John Pankow. He had seen Pankow in To Live and Die in LA and thought he was the next Roy Scheider. But for whatever reason, Pankow's agent wouldn't pass the Monkey Shine script along to him. This problem was solved when Romero and Pankow happened to cross paths at a social event. So Romero was able to tell him directly that he wanted him to be in the movie. Pankow gladly signed on to play Jeffrey, the character who worked with Ella in the science lab, who regularly injects her with an intelligence-enhancing serum that contains shavings from human brains, and has the bright idea that this clever little creature would be the perfect helper monkey for his friend Alan. The monkey Ella was the most difficult role to cast. A trained monkey, who Romero had been promised was going to be a superstar, refused to cooperate. They could get monkeys from a service animal program called Helping Hands, but the monkeys in that program had had their canine teeth extracted. Ella needed to have all of her teeth. You see a lot of her teeth in this movie. In fact, as the film goes on and the bond between Ella and Alan grows stronger, there are moments where Alan's teeth are emphasized, so it looks like he has fangs like hers. The perfect Ella was found when a monkey trainer revealed that she had adopted a foster monkey named Boo. Boo still had her teeth and was actually willing to cooperate with the film production. She ended up doing around 98% of what you see Ella do on screen. For some moments, Romero's frequent collaborator Tom Savini and effects artists Everett Burrell and Mike Tersic provided monkey puppets, including one that was remote-controlled, as well as monkey hands that were used for close-ups, where Ella's hands are shown doing something Boo couldn't do, like strike matches. As talented as Boo was, it wasn't easy working with her or the other monkeys seen in the movie. This was said to be the toughest shoot of Romero's career because of the monkeys. And since it took an average of 15 takes anytime the monkeys were required to do a specific action, he also shot more film on this movie than on any of his others. To get reactions from the monkeys, crew members would have to find a way to surprise them. They would wear different hats, play maracas, whatever it took. They would have to find a different way to surprise the monkeys for each scene, because once something had surprised them, it wouldn't work a second time. The monkeys made a mess of the set, peeing all over the place, and some would develop an inexplicable hatred for members of the crew. Boo hated a certain trainer, so whenever they needed a shot of her looking angry, they would just put the trainer in her line of sight. A monkey in the lab hated a specific set dresser so much, when it was set loose, it went straight for the guy and bit him on the arm. He had to go to the hospital to get his wound treated. Scenes where Ella is shown being particularly affectionate toward Alan were shot when Boo was in heat. And while Boo liked Jason Berge, she was certainly capable of directing some monkey shines his way. During a scene where Ella is feeding Alan grapes, Boo decided to give Berge a special treat. She pulled a turd from her butt and stuck the piece of poop in his mouth. Since the monkey is named Ella and is shown to enjoy music, Romero wanted to put Ella Fitzgerald songs in the film. He even wrote Fitzgerald lyrics into the script in scenes where the songs would be playing. But he couldn't get the rights to any of Fitzgerald's music because her agent decided it would somehow be insulting to show Ella and Alan listening to her songs. So songs by Peggy Lee were used instead. When it came time for the score to be composed, Romero also couldn't get his top choice for composer, multiple Oscar winner Henry Mancini. Romero had been in contact with Mancini, and the composer was willing to take the job. The problem was the distributor. Through personal connections, Charles Evans had managed to secure a release for Monkey Shines through Orion Pictures, and Orion refused to let Romero hire Mancini, fearing that Mancini's music would sound too sweet for a horror movie. They gave him a list of composers they would let him work with, and he chose another Oscar winner, David Shire. Shire listened to the temp score Romero had put together using Mancini tracks and attempted to give him a similar sound. Romero said that there are moments in the Shire score that sound even sweeter than the music Mancini probably would have delivered. But it wasn't Mancini music, so Orion was satisfied. Romero didn't have a pleasant experience working with Orion. The music wasn't the only area where he ran into trouble with them. He wanted to end the movie with a scene that shows Dean Burbage in the lab with the monkeys, indicating he's up to some monkey shines of his own. Orion hated this scene. They repeatedly told Romero that they wanted the Burbage scene removed and replaced with a Carrie ending, some kind of attempt to replicate the famous jump scare ending from the movie Carrie. Orion felt vindicated when a test screening was held and the audience reacted poorly to the final moments. But it wasn't the Burbage ending viewers didn't like. It was the scene before that, the one that shows Alan's surgery has been successful and he has regained the use of his arms and legs. The audience thought it was a cheat, if not preposterous, that Alan could be healed in the end. But Orion kept their focus on the Burbage scene and forced Romero to do additional photography to give them a Carrie ending. Romero ended up shooting a nightmare version of Alan's spinal surgery that shows Ella emerging from his back. It's nonsense, but it's a jump scare, so Orion got what they wanted. And it was because Romero had to shoot this extra scene that he lost the job of directing the Stephen King adaptation, Pet Sematary. That movie was heading into production while he was still working on Monkey Shines for Orion, so he had to let go of Pet Sematary and Mary Lambert took over as director. Orion didn't even like the title Monkey Shines, feeling that it sounded like a comedy. They considered calling the movie An Experiment in Fear instead, but settled for adding that as a subtitle on the marketing material. They made a poster that Romero hated, featuring a cymbal-smashing monkey toy, and instead of a simple tagline, they came up with a whole poem to use to sell the concept. The poem goes like this. Once there was a man whose prison was a chair.
The man had a monkey. They made the strangest pair. The man was the prisoner. The monkey held the key. No matter how he tried, the man couldn't flee. In his prison, terrified and frail, the monkey gaining power, keeping him in jail. The man tried to keep a monkey from his brain, but every move he made became the monkey's gain. The monkey ruled the man. It climbed inside his head. And now, as fate would have it, one of them
is dead. The full poem was featured in a trailer for Monkey Shines, while a shortened version is on the poster. This rhyme, that equated being in a wheelchair to being in prison, didn't go over well with the public. When Monkey Shines was released, protesters showed up at screenings, protesting the wording of the poem and protesting the fact that Alan has recovered by the end of the movie. In addition to putting together a terrible marketing campaign, Orion also made the bad decision to release Monkey Shines on the exact same day as the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail, July 29th, 1988. Cocktail opened at number 1. Monkey Shines didn't even crack the top 10 on its opening weekend, coming in under films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Coming to America, Die Hard, Midnight Run, The Deadpool, Big, and a re-release of Bambi. Clearly, Orion had sent Monkey Shines out into the world at the worst possible time. The movie didn't enter the top 10 at any point during its theatrical run. It ended up making just over $5 million at the box office, less than its budget. Romero slammed Orion, saying, quote, "They blew it. They were the worst. A terrible studio. They made all the wrong decisions. They kept films they should have thrown in the garbage, and they hated films that made a lot of money. They didn't like Dances with Wolves. They thought The Silence of the Lambs was garbage." And even though Orion did release Best Picture winners Dances with Wolves and The Silence of the Lambs in the years following Monkey Shines, the rest of their output was so underwhelming that they ended up going bankrupt by the end of 1991. When Monkey Shines reached VHS, more viewers started giving it a chance. It gradually earned a cult following. It has never gotten as popular as some of Romero's other movies, but it has its share of fans. And as more genre enthusiasts check it out in the days of DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming, its following continues to grow. Romero considered Monkey Shines to be a take on the concept of Jekyll and Hyde, Alan being the Jekyll and Ella being the homicidal Hyde that brings out his bad side. The movie was seen as being something a bit different from the rest of the genre movies on Romero's resume. As John Pankow told Fangoria magazine, quote, "It's a psychological thriller, a suspense picture. It's much less horror than Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead. It's a whole different type of movie. You know, the talk is that this is a real departure for Romero, that it's a pretty risky proposition for him because it's new territory. You don't see anyone's legs cut off in this movie." Savini repeated the "it's a psychological thriller" line in his own interview for the magazine. But while Monkey Shines may not be the gore fest that the zombie movies Romero and Savini made together were, the movie definitely fits into the horror movie. And even though some may scoff at the idea of a killer capuchin monkey, especially one that taps into the thoughts and emotions of the human it cares for, this is an effective horror movie. The story works because Romero never once attempts to make a joke out of it. Alan's situation is treated very seriously, and the actors do a great job of digging into the emotional weight of it all. We sympathize with Alan, and Ella is adorable. So when this monkey is brought into Alan's home and proves to be helpful, we come to care about her just like Alan does. And when things go terribly wrong, we still can't blame Ella for what she's doing. She does some nasty stuff, but she's still a cute little animal. She has been driven to do this. She has been experimented on. The serum Jeffrey has injected her with over and over has made her a killer. We know she needs to be stopped, but it would be heartbreaking to see her get hurt. Pankow does such a great job playing Jeffrey, we can't see the character as a villain for what he has done. We know his heart was in the right place, but he never should have been conducting these experiments on the monkeys in his lab. With a running time of 1 hour and 53 minutes, Monkey Shine does go on a bit longer than necessary, but the story plays out in an interesting way, and the viewer becomes invested in seeing how it's going to turn out for everyone involved, and it doesn't go well for several people. There are great dramatic scenes throughout Monkey Shines. Berge does an incredible job playing his character, whether the scene involves Alan dealing with becoming quadriplegic, bonding with Ella, getting close with Melanie, or expressing the intense rage that Ella brings out in him. A deep dive into horror is saved for the film's final 30 minutes, when there's an extended sequence set in Alan's house, where Ella tries to cement her place in his life by taking out his mother, Melanie, and Jeffrey. Romero brought an awesome home invasion sequence to the screen in his film Martin a decade earlier. Monkey Shines features another standout home invasion sequence that ranks right up there with the one in Martin. This time, the invader is a naughty monkey, wielding weapons like matches, syringes, and a straight razor. Romero would often name Martin as his favorite of his own films, and Day of the Dead as his favorite of the zombie movies he made. But he felt Monkey Shines, which he made after both of those films, was his most well-crafted movie up to that point. So it's a shame that it ended up being in the hands of a studio that bungled its release and hasn't been seen by as many viewers as it should have been. This is a great entry in Romero's filmography, and probably the smartest, most unsettling telepathic killer monkey movie we ever could have gotten. So seek out Monkey Shines, give it a chance, and see if you agree with Romero. that it's a better crafted film than his lower budgeted endeavors.